So welcome again. I'm here to share 5 essential tips for building a world-class MSP partner program with a goal of accelerating your revenue. And I think what's key here, as I said, 5 essential tips, not the 5 top tips, not the 5 only tips. There are a lot of tips. I'm going to leave you at the end with a whole bunch of other tips that you got to think about. But again, appreciate Terry and the team bringing me here. And myself, Terry gave a little bit of my background, but I did start what I called a solution provider back in the day. And I was fortunate enough to kind of learn the MSP world by becoming one towards the end of my tenure. Late 90s, I adopted what I called my proactive service delivery model, which was all about MRR before we were called MSPs. So I like to call myself a business technology solution provider. Been through all the break fix, bumps and bruises, and got tired of it. Uh, Generated MRR, was able to sell my business, one of the first consolidations, 2001, to a publicly traded company. I then went out and started coaching, literally thousands of MSPs on how to be an MSP, help build global communities for folks like Kaseya, or early on in their career. Joined Autotask for 12 years, was channel chief there. We grew to 100 million plus, got acquired twice by Vista Equity Partners. Joined Datto for a year after our merger. Left, joined Accordo, built a program there, global. We sold that business. And for the last 5 years, I've really been consulting with vendors and their partners on how to accelerate revenue streams, build community through world-class partner programs. So, kind of gives me, as Terry said, a little bit of a background to deliver content like this. Over the last 5 years, I've probably worked with 15 or so vendors at various stages of their growth and development, getting into the channel. So again, 5 essential tips to accelerate MSP revenue with a world-class partner program. Number one, clearly outline partner program benefits and incentives. Definitely going to do a deep dive into each of them, but I'll just kind of share what we're going to cover. Second, simplify the sales process to acquire new partners. Very important. I don't mean simplify it just for your sales team, simplify it for your partners as well, making it easy to do business with you. Once you bring those partners in, you need a top-notch enablement journey. I think I see a lot of vendors not really be prepared to do this, kind of anticipating that MSPs will get good at the product and good at selling and marketing your product, and really kind of leave that enablement journey, I don't want to say behind a little bit, but just kind of have it just happen. And then once you get that partner enabled to go to market, you really want to help them go to market and activate in their client base. I think that's real important. We'll touch on that. And then I'm going to leave you with developing a two-pronged approach to channel marketing, which will run right into Terry. And I can certainly share, I've worked with the largest vendors in the channel and the smallest ones. And I was, I don't want to say amazed, but again, something that I can help correct, where people think they just need to recruit MSPs in the program and run their demand gen, but forget to help their partners market. So we'll get into that a little bit. So, and before we get started, I always kind of like to kind of understand or share or get a consensus of why you're actually even building a program, right? We're talking about building a world-class program, but why? And number one for me, and I'll kind of bring up Kaseya and then Autotask and certainly Datto. And the whole goal is to get out in front of the MSP community, have a great story to tell. And I think getting that share of voice among the MSP community is what ultimately drives your program, because word of mouth's going to be out there. You're a great vendor to work with. Your product is great. And, folks are going to just want to work with you. And ultimately at Autotask, we went from, 800 or so partners to close to 10,000. And ultimately, it was really the community that made a difference, being a thought leader and really just helping your partners grow. And our last conference before we sold to Datto, we had about 1,500 MSPs attending. Our first conference was about 200. I think, Terry, you were even at that first conference in Nashville, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think I had all of them, Len.
Yeah, you were definitely at all of them, and appreciate all of the Autotest partners that would listen in on this. And I know a lot of my partners are now vendors. So, and then, second, I think most important reason you build a program is to scale revenue. And we're going to touch on that in a second. But, if you think about having 10 sales reps, how many direct clients can you actually have as a vendor? And when you put MSPs in front of it who have clients, that's where you start to see scale. And the fact is that from Canalys in January 2024, one of their studies, MSP predictions, 69% of channel partners polled said a dedicated MSP program improves their relationship with their vendors. And you have to have a program for MSPs because $219 billion have been generated by MSPs in 2020-23, total managed service revenue, almost 80,000 partners delivering those managed services, again, from Canalys, August 2024 MSP analysis study. So a couple of great reasons you're building an MSP partner program. And we touched on scale. I always like to kind of touch on how I look at scale. And you have your sales executives at the vendor. If they're working with direct clients, they're going to land their clients one at a time. But if you really help them recruit new MSPs into your program, you can instantly scale your sales team because essentially your sales execs are managing their own sales team of MSPs. And when you recruit that new MSP partner, let's say they got 25 clients, 100 clients, on up to however many partners your rep can handle, which I've seen anywhere from, 20 to 50 MSPs being managed by an account manager, a partner account manager. They have clients, and those clients are where you end up activating and really get your product out into that client base. We all know how much easier it is to sell to clients than it is to prospects. And that's goal number one. We're going to touch on that in this session as well. And you do want to help win new logos, but if you're signing partners who have a goal of using your product to win new logos and they're not going to penetrate their base, to me, that's a red flag. Only because it's much more difficult, obviously, to win new business. So you want to really scale your sales team with your partner program by recruiting MSPs into a great program, which kind of gets us into essential tip number one, and that's building your partner program benefits and incentives out. And I kind of look at it, being a long time ago, as Terry brought out a lot of years here, but, I was recruited to play college football. I know athletes out there recruited all the time, maybe going to a college. You're going to look at the program they have. You're going to see what benefits are in the program, what offers and incentives they have. Maybe on the college side for sports, you get a scholarship. They got their team bus. They got private tutors. They got a private, study room, new field, their own buses, whatever it may be. There's a program that you have to build. And perhaps if you're not really interested in going, you don't want to be kind of, being followed. Maybe you just want to go to the school and like do your own thing. Similar with MSPs, in your program, you're going to look to build tiers in your program, and those benefits accelerate with the tiers. And maybe, I hear a lot about month to month, no commitment. MSPs like working with vendors like that. But at the end of the day, you want a strong vendor, and that vendor gets stronger when you sign a commitment and a contract, as your business should. I hear a lot of coaches, Terry, I don't know about you, but I'm always surprised when I hear, hey, MSPs, you shouldn't have contracts with your clients. Or, if a vendor doesn't have contracts, and I learned it firsthand, both as an MSP and a vendor, you need contracts because that's where you get your value, Terry. I mean, I don't know what you think. Have you seen that out there?
Yeah, you don't sometimes realize how important contracts are until you go to sell or you get sued, right? Under both scenarios, it really helps to have expectations documented and liabilities clearly understood, and then have that sort of like unambiguous physical documentation to replace memories that fade over time.
And that takes us to, tier number two, where, perhaps your pricing decreases as partners commit more. And I always call it a starter pack, but how do you get that partner to commit a little bit to you as a vendor so you can in turn start committing more resources to them? And as you kind of move up your tiers, you're going to increase the benefits and the incentives because you want to work with your partners that are performing and you want to surround them with more resources. Not that you don't want to surround a tier two person like a tier four. And I've actually seen vendors go, I don't care how my partners come in. I'm going to give them all my resources. And, it really just depends as a vendor what resources you have available. But ultimately, increasing benefits as partners buy in with a higher commitment. That's how I tend to approach the market. And then those incentives could be people, resources like a partner portal, those increasing product discounts as you move up the tiers. discounted internal use licenses, NFRs for demos, earned rebates, market development funds. These are some examples of benefits and incentives. And as you can see, I always kind of like to put, a little cascading. Let me see if I can. I guess I was going to try to get a pen in here, but I can't. But you can see that the yeses kind of increase as you move along the chain here. So with that, you have a program now, and that program is where you want to recruit your partners into. And I'm just making sure we're seeing everything correctly on the screen, guys. My screen just fumbled a little bit.
Yep, all clear.
Good. So, now that you've got a program, you really want to simplify that sales process to acquire new partners. That's our essential tip number 2, because again, you got that program in place. You're going to generate leads for your sales team. And that's, again, Terry will share that later. But, one of the keys, I think, for a simplified sales process that I've learned, if your sales team doesn't understand your target audience, and here we're talking specifically about MSPs, but it could be agents, whatever type of partner out there, distributors, you have to understand your target audience. And I think as vendors scale and grow, they're hiring folks that may or may not have been in the channel. And I know everybody likes that channel profile for their new hires, but it doesn't always happen. So first off, always make sure you're educating your team and, MSP 101, 102 training, whatever you want to call it. And this way, discovery and recruiting becomes a little bit easier, right? You have to understand your audience in order to do the proper discovery and see if that prospective partner meets your ideal partner profile. And ultimately, that discovery and recruiting really leads to relationship building. I think that's the key to the MSP community. It is a relationship business. And, you could say all businesses are, but it's not really transactional. If you want to become a strategic vendor partner to your MSP community, you really have to have a relationship. And Terry and I are kind of prime example. Ken, myself, Heather, the folks I'm seeing on this, all relationships over the years, Terry. I mean, do you think you can make a sale if you don't build a relationship? I don't know, maybe.
Not the skills that we'd want to have. I think if you're a VAR and you have a very simple transactional sale like a monitor or a mouse, I think people buy from people they like. But when it comes to cloud managed services, security, recurring revenue, long-term contracts, it takes a relationship to build trust. And I think that's the threshold for winning the deals that we want to see won,
And I would probably have loved to put the word trust in here, but I agree. And again, these are in no particular order, although I do see this happen in this particular flow many, many more times than not. But, if you have a great product, you might get on a call and they go, show me the product. But hopefully your sales team really moves more into discovery, relationship building, and then starts to talk about the product and the value of the product, not only to the MSP, more importantly, to that MSP's clients. And I guess even to clarify, you're either selling to the MSP and you still should have a program, or you're selling through an MSP, and that product and value demo, kind of works in both scenarios. If that MSP is going to use it in their business only, it has to have value because it's a cost to their business. If they're selling through, it has to have a value to their clients, to their operational maturity on the MSP side, and ultimately get that tech win, move them into a trial, proof of concept before you start putting out a proposal and a contract. And I guess this is where it even gets, I don't want to say you want to be even more simple, but certainly, big old contracts, you have to have them, but make them simple in certain regards. Like if you're a multi-product vendor, I've seen a lot of vendors go out there and go, okay, if they want to sell this, you got to sign a contract. You want to sell that, you got to sign a contract. I've seen a lot of success where you have an ACV minimum commitment and a partner can sell all your products. And whether they focus on one or two to get started, that's okay, because now they can just keep going and expand. So I love ACV contracts. And you put that proposal out there and hopefully you get that partner to sign. And, from the inside, you're acquiring that partner, you're signing him. And on the partner side, they're joining a great partner program. And that's why you build out those benefits and incentives and have a nice, simple sales process to make that happen. So now you did all that work, you brought that partner in, now what? And I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, it might be a point where some vendors maybe, I don't want to say drop the ball, but maybe they don't have all the resources in place and you have to get there at some point. But building a top-notch enablement journey is pretty critical because that's how your partner is going to go to market. And typically, after you acquire that partner, you have an enablement kickoff call. And in fact, before the partner enablement kickoff call, you might even have an internal sync call with the rep that, if you have the resources in place, perhaps that sales rep, which I've seen be the enabler, I've seen be the activator, I've seen the hunter be everything in startup organizations. But when you really get down to it, you may end up handing off from sales into an enablement team, partner enablement manager, and you have to sync up before an enablement kickoff call where you begin to introduce more of your team into the mix, perhaps a technical resource to do some product enablement. So maybe in that kickoff call, you're going to start to schedule the key business units in your organization with the peer stakeholders over on the partner side. Maybe on the product side, you'll have your SE or some technical resource, maybe even the same tech that did the demo and trial, which really that's part of product enablement. Your trial is really very important to showing your partner how your product works and helps them and their client. Then you want to make sure you get a marketing enablement kickoff call, whether it's, again, the partner account manager or you have a separate partner marketing manager. How does your partner market? Where are the marketing assets? Do you have a partner portal? And then sales enablement. You want your partner to be able to speak about your product to their client. Now, in certain cases, there's not really a lot of selling. If you're doing a rip and replace of an existing product, perhaps it's a very simple maneuver. And well, I won't say a simple maneuver for your partner. They got to do some work, but they are going to rip something else out and put yours in. No selling needs to be done in that case. Maybe just driving awareness over what changes might appear on the desktop. But you do have to get sales enablement in certain cases where maybe you're adding into an MSP stack a great new product, and they have to talk to their clients about it. But again, it's an easier conversation and an easier sales process. And I always like to talk about finance as part of enablement because the last thing you want is when that partner gets their first invoice and not understand it, not know how to pay it. And I have seen that cause a lot of stress. And you did a great job winning them, pulling them into your program, a great job getting them enabled, and then they get that first invoice and it wigs them out. So ultimately, you want to have a partner enablement manager role, and everyone in that framework has to be working together because you want to activate in their client base. So the product team has to know that's what you're doing because then they can help get those first one or two clients activated. The marketing team knows you're driving awareness, and the sales team, at least on your side, on the vendor side, really knows what your client is doing, and on your partner side, and your partner knows what they're doing as well, and everybody works together to get those first couple of clients activated on the partner side. And then ultimately, you want to make sure that enablement is happening across multiple stakeholders if you're resourced that way, and maybe grab an enablement sync call along the way to make sure everything's going right. Any thoughts here, Terry? Anybody? Ken? Otherwise, I'm going to keep rocking.
You're doing a great job, Len. Keep it going.
Ken, you want to say something?
Well, it's interesting that how important is integration? And first of all, define an MSP. Does that include a VAR, an SSP, somebody that has their own NOC, they're buying RMM and selling remote monitoring and management to their end customers? So that's the first definition I was looking for. But also, how important is the integration? Because you're not going to sign the contract. Do I have to connect into their PSA tools as a vendor? How important is that?
You've hit on a couple of the additional tips, right, Ken? But, in my Autotask days, we had over 200 vendors integrate into our platform. And many times a vendor would call me up about integrating, and that was part of my role there. And what I would do is tell them, yeah, you should integrate because they want to see their tickets in one place. They don't want to look at your stuff. So integrating with the PSA is very important because invariably, if the vendor didn't integrate, when they tried selling into that Autotask, the ConnectWise community, whatever PSA they're using, whatever ticketing system essentially they're using, that MSP is going to ask you, are you integrated? So you're either going to head it off at the pass. And what I've actually seen is on the vendor side, issues with putting those resources in place because they don't believe it, right? They just want to go sell, sell, sell. And at the end of the day, that's what knowing the MSP market means when I say train your sales team. And all good questions, Terry, because I think, because I think MSPs become a catch-all term. I think, back in the day, you had a solution provider, you had VARs, you had this, you had that. But everybody wants to be an MSP. Vendors want to attack MSPs. So basically attack in a good way. So everybody wants to be an MSP. So now it's more about the maturity level of the solution provider. How much MRR are they having? To me, I've seen this as, Terry again pointed out my many years, Ken, like you in this industry. Uh, you know, you can't be, in my opinion, you can't be an MSP without an RMM. That may be changing depending on how you view an MSP. Is it about recurring revenue and working in the cloud and the SaaS world and the infrastructure as a service world? But somehow, some way, you need an RMM-like tool to be monitoring all your solutions, whether it's SaaS, whether it's a desktop. So I think the most basic and traditional MSP has an RMM and a ticketing system, more than likely a PSA like Autotask, ConnectWise, obviously Halo's out there, Zurant, a couple other products out there. But you have to integrate for sure, in my opinion. And an MSP is someone that has an RMM. But more importantly, I think an MSP manages their clients. They are either the business technology department or they're co-managing with an internal IT. That means they have recurrent revenue and they have a voice inside that client of theirs that they can then bring your products in. So you really want to know they are an MSP, they are mature, they have the right tools, they're generating recurrent revenue, and they have a managed client base. I mean, typically an MSP, I always want to have 100% of my clients managed. So what's the percent of managed clients? How many of their clients believe so much in the MSP, they're going to pay them every month to do stuff. So the MSP definition is not here, but it's certainly part of that training that you have to do internally and then further defining it with your ideal partner profile. So, but good questions, Ken. Thanks. So I don't know if so we'll finish up. We got enablement journey. And again, the goal is ultimately to get that partner to be self-efficient, marketing, selling, deploying, and supporting your solution. So tip number 4, focus on activating partners in their client base. So now we've enabled them to go to market. You've showed them co-brandable marketing assets. They've met your team. They're comfortable. They trust you, as Terry used that important word before. So they may not be afraid to bring you in, certainly to the planning part, right? Because hopefully in the sales process, your sales rep, while doing discovery, understood that partner had clients. And they knew who the top 3, 4, or 5 clients were, and who were the first clients that they were going to roll the solution out to or sell that vendor solution to. So, you really want to support your partners throughout the partner sales process. And maybe initially you'll be identifying opportunities with your partner that you started doing in the sales process. And now you're kind of, all right, you're enabled or you're in enablement. And part of it is, let's look at your base. Where does it fit the most? Let's identify opportunities. I don't want to say it's kind of backwards where you market and try to get a lead, but they're already your clients. You've identified they have managed clients. Your MSP partner should know their clients. So let's start seeing which ones may be a fit for the solution. And then let's go about driving awareness in any number of ways, whether it's just picking up the phone. Maybe you've built a PowerPoint in a box, webinar in a box, which they can do in an event. Co-brandable assets? Are you giving them a marketing automation platform? Most MSPs are, well, I guess they're starting to have webinar platforms, but as a vendor, make them use yours. Get involved in running a webinar and being speakers, and ultimately helping them on some sales calls right as they begin to engage their client prospects. And again, sell with your partners when you're called on, realizing MSPs own their base, you don't as a vendor. So you really have to build trust with your MSP partner if they going to bring you on a sales call. And typically the MSPs selling themselves, but depending on your product, they may bring in you or whatever they're selling, maybe another vendor, just to show they have some support in the back end from the vendors that are key in whatever solution they're putting in. So be ready to show up when called upon in the sales process as your partners engage their prospects. And now it becomes really critical that that solution gets deployed properly. So if they engage their prospects and they get the okay to roll your solution out as a vendor, you want to make sure you have top support to help that MSP partner roll your solution out in their base, because that is their bread and butter. Their clients are their bread and butter. And if your solution, your efforts damage a client relationship, you're going to pay the price, and perhaps that MSP will pay the price by losing a client. And that's where that, share of voice comes into play. Hopefully you're doing a great job and the good word spreads. You just don't want a bad word spreading out there. So be ready to support your partners as they roll a solution out into their client base, and have an SLA, make sure they know what kind of response you're going to give them. MSPs are used to SLAs. They're going to expect one from you. So have one for your partners to work off of with you. And then finally, essential tip number 5, we just talked about 4 essential tips, essentially getting recruiting partners into the program, getting them enabled, getting them activated in their base. And of course, how do you get leads? Well, interestingly, I mentioned earlier, I work with some of the largest vendors, and all they wanted to do is get partners in their program. And then what happens when the partner's in the program? The partner has to market themselves. They have to create their own assets. They have to do their own presentations and so on. So make sure you have a 2-pronged approach to channel marketing, and that's demand gen to the partner to recruit them or get leads so that they can be recruited in your program, and with the partner or through the partner to drive awareness into their client base to get them activated, and then pieces that help them win new logos. And realize again, it's hard sometimes for vendor clients I work with to get it at first, but an MSP may not really sell your solution. So be sure you have content that talks about managed services, maybe a little bit of a focus on where your solution is. If it's cybersecurity, talking about that, or whatever your solution may be, hardware, routers, switches, telecom service, bring it into that description. So you have to know what managed services is. You have to know what your MSP partners are like, and make content that they could use in their business. And I know Terry's going to share how Marketopia does it. And of course, a whole nother level of demand gen. What activities are you executing on? Conferences, digital marketing activities, webinars, masterclass, website content for your partners. And then with the partner, do you have a portal where you hold your assets? Do you have go-to-market playbooks? Are you providing market automation, MDF, and so on? So a couple of different levels you have to dig through in your 2-partner and with partner marketing, but have a 2-pronged approach. Drive leads to your sales team, get them recruited in the program. Once they're in the program, get them enabled, show them how to market or drive awareness in their base, and how to use your product to win new logos. Ken brought up a couple of good questions around other tips, but I think what you see, Ken, number 10, number 9, it's all about the product, right? And let me not miss the most important fact. You need number 4. Your product has to work. It has to fit the market, because if you're trying to sell something that does not work, it's not going to work no matter how great your partner program is. So I always highlight with vendors, make sure your product it fits the market, fits the MSP world, multi-tenant, a whole bunch of kind of factors go into it. And I could certainly share more on that. But these are just 15 additional essential tips, and there's a few more behind it. We'll leave that for another day. And with that, I'll recap and bring in Terry. You really have to commit to building a world-class partner program. It doesn't happen overnight. CompTIA study says 12 to 18 months to build a partner program and really see the results you're gunning for, and really become a partner-first organization. And when you make that decision, it means everybody in your organization's on the same page. And actually, one of the clear benefits of your partner program is you can educate your own internal team on what your program is all about before going out and telling the world about it. So clearly outline your partner program benefits, simplify that sales process, not only for the partner, but for internally and have a simple contract process. Build that top-notch enablement journey that gets them focused, your partners, on activating in their client base, and develop that two-pronged approach to channel marketing. And of course, you could always reach out if you need additional guidance. There's my email. But without further ado, I'm going to thank you all for listening.